The hype surrounding the release of entertainment media has been prevalent for quite a while, whether it be the release of anything related to Star Wars, the release of the long-awaited Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War, or even video games like Halo 3 on opening night. But today, we'll be talking about something similar in nature, only that this one gets deep. Get your popcorn ready, because today, we're sitting through a longer one. Today, we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Projekt Red is not new to the gaming scene. You've most likely heard of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, probably their most popular game. This game was released in 2015. It's an action RPG based on the Witcher series of fantasy novels written by, and I can't pronounce that name, so here's the author. Anyway, this game was CDPR's first big hit. Just from the reviews alone, you can see that this is a loved game. With a beautiful environment with likable characters, the game seems like a masterpiece. While the game may be a masterpiece to some, there are still flaws within the game. Just searching The Witcher 3 bug year release will show articles talking about bugs including freezing errors, but these bugs seem to have been patched, making this game perfect to buy. A couple of other games are involved in includes Gwent, all of The Witcher, and Saints Row 2. Saints Row 2 being one of the best in the Saints Row series, as well as being an open world video game. This sounds similar to a game that was released in 2020, but first, we need to get back to announcement day. January 10th, 2013. 8 years ago, the first teaser trailer was released for Cyberpunk 2077. The teaser included a brief showcase of the world of Cyberpunk, with futuristic guns, sci-fi mechanical implants, and a neon futuristic city in a game made by CD Projekt Red, the creators of the Witcher video game series. All this sounded like a good deal. But this wasn't the only time Night City was mentioned. In fact, it's mentioned in another game. If you've ever played The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, then I'm sure you've heard of this cameo in the game. Have a listen.
Eredin and his Red Riders were on my heels. I fled through many worlds, many times. They came very close to catching me once. It was then that Avalok appeared, out of nowhere. He found a portal, and took us to a world where Eredin couldn't find us for, perhaps half a year.
The world where Eredin couldn't find you. What was it like?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Try me.
People there had metal in their heads, waged war from a distance, using things similar to megascopes. And there were no horses. Everyone had their own flying ship instead.
Siri, stop fooling around.
Told you wouldn't believe me.
At this point in time, these are the only things people knew about Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, people heard of the tabletop game, which could give people an idea of what the world would be like, as well as other trailers to come in the future. But a while later, a new video would blow people's minds. That video would be the 40-minute gameplay video. August 27th, 2018. The first gameplay video was revealed. Only thing is, it wasn't what people were expecting. Straight off the bat, the character customizer looked deep. There were incredibly deep options like choosing your own childhood hero, a key life event, or even why you're in Night City. All of this with the other forms of appearance change and customization looked like a dream come true. Even in the cutscenes, it seemed like your character was really alive. Just like the characters around you, like Jackie and T-Bug, two different personalities that could possibly affect you in the future. In the level they're in, the main focus is saving a woman in the bathroom. There are two sections I want to talk about here, those being decision making and combat. First off, the combat is amazing. There's a stealth system with two options for whether you want to kill or simply knock out. Seeing this gives a stronger role-playing vibe. You could be a murderous or a non-killing mercenary. Next comes the decision-making aspect. During this video is given a timer where you could heal the woman in the tub, or you can be too late and she'd most likely die. After this, more is shown about the world of Cyberpunk. The safe house or apartment had a lot to show. First off, like other open world games like Grand Theft Auto, you can have relations with others, which is shown in the video, or at least the end of it. On top of that, the radio/news talks about things within the world, like deaths. Later on, the size of the ground population is shown. It's pretty big, I'm not gonna lie. But the thing I really wanted to get into is the consequences. This looked deep. The same people from the beginning are after you again. All this made Cyberpunk look like a world within a player's hands. E3 is a common place for video games. whether it be trailers, gameplay videos, or even newly announced video games. During E3 2019, Cyberpunk 2077 had their own segment, with the man himself, Keanu Reeves. Here we have the birth of this moment.
The feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking. All right. So, I gotta finish this, so tell me.
As well as a CGI trailer. If you've never played Cyberpunk and you're planning on playing it, I'd skip to this timestamp as there is a spoiler. Anyway, here's a video. So basically, what came out of this event was finding out Keanu was in it, a CGI trailer, as well as a release date. Although that release date wouldn't stay for long. Cyberpunk's initial release date was April 16th of 2020. Of course, that's changed. On Twitter, CD Projekt Red posted the yellow screen of death. Now this delay wasn't from April since there was no post about it. I'm pretty sure that you see that this is a large paragraph, so I'll just give a brief summary about it. So a brief summary was that they weren't going to release an unfinished product, which is understandable. Looking at the replies, lots of people were pissed about this change. To give back so no one felt empty-handed, CDPR started a new series called Night City Wire. Basically, these would be full-length videos talking about specific topics. An example would be the vehicle section. Basically, different classes of cars for different terrain. This would go on for a couple of months until the next delay, on October 27th of 2020. The delay was only 21 days, so the release was on December 10th. The replies were saying things like CDPR shouldn't have put out a release date if they're going to continuously delay the game, which is honestly true. They should have stuck with their release when ready stick. While these replies were common, there were still angry replies. An example of this was people asking for vacation days and ending up having no game to play. This later became a big thing for this individual. But hey, he got some free things in return. But of course, that wasn't going to help in other people's hands, as they were still empty-handed. A few good things that come out of this was knowing that the game would not get delayed again, as well as knowing the game would get polished. At least we thought so. So now, we're in the countdown. December 3rd, 2020. We're now only 1 week away from the release. During the wait, we've learned many things about the world of Cyberpunk. We've learned about the complex world, including a large society, gangs, and vehicles, the many styles of music in the in-game radio, one being from one of my favorite rap duos, Run the Jewels, as well as a character customizer. During the week-long countdown, many people are excited, one of those people being me. On December 6th of 2020, I uploaded a video called Ways to Avoid Spoilers for Cyberpunk 2077. I recommended things like turning out DMs, staying away from social media, and apps. Apps meaning spoiler protection and things like that. And up until December 10th, Cyberpunk 2077 was released. We've made it. Cyberpunk 2077 was finally released on December 10th of 2020, but it was not what we were expecting. For the next two parts, I'll be talking about opinion-based reviews, first section being pros and the second being cons. Let's get into it. Every story has something in common, that being that they all have characters. And I'm not gonna lie, Cyberpunk 2077 has a good way of differentiating each character they come by so they don't fall under same-face syndrome. A short explanation of same-face syndrome is basically every character looking practically the same, but with a minor difference in features. First off, every character looks unique. Whether it be facial features, clothing, or personality, each character embodied their own trait. An example of this goes all the way back to part 3 of the video, where I said that Jackie and T-Bug both had unique personalities, Jackie being more of a brute force energetic type of character, while T-Bug's a hacker/mysterious type of character. This would go on for other characters like Judy Alvarez, which brings us to the next pro, that being side missions. These side missions are quite interesting. Like the character I just mentioned before, Judy, had her own section of these. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll give a brief explanation. Basically, someone dies, and then you and Judy try to discover why said person died. During this, your relationship with Judy gets closer in multiple ways, depending on the gender of V. This quest is lightly connected with the main story, giving opportunities for new characters of different stature to give their own stories, which are unique as they're not identical to the main story. There's also unique types of actions in Judy's quests, one of those being brain dances, basically seeing past events in a visual experience. And it's not only the side quests that are good. The main story is pretty good for pretty much the same reasons, just with other characters in a different plot. They also bring you around to multiple locations around the city, in a way to differentiate the main story with side quests are the ending. I'm not going to spoil the endings, but they're all drastically different from each other. So it's not just multiple endings with a minor difference, but it's multiple endings with completely different outcomes. The last two pros I can mention off the top of my head are cybernetics and the radio station. There are 3 types of cyberware for your arms in this game. First being gorilla arms, this increases your punching damage. Second being mantis blades, you can slash and dash at your enemies. And last is a missile launch system, which is a grenade launcher attached to your arm. Even though there are only a minor amount of cyberware for your arms, as there are some for healing and jumping, they're still different from each other, allowing for different playstyles. And of course, for the last pro, which is the in-game music. I can't play it as I'll get a copyright claim, but my 3 favorites are No Save Point, Alex Supreme, and Night City. Night City is honestly the best song of the entire game in my opinion. You should definitely listen to it if you have the chance. Now that we've reached the conclusion of pros, we'll now get into cons. Cyberpunk 2077 was marketed as a role-playing game. Like other RPGs like Fallout New Vegas and Skyrim, it has a character customizer. But Cyberpunk's customizer was far different from before. In part 3 I mentioned things like choosing a childhood hero, a key life event, as well as why you're in Night City. Well, all of those are removed and replaced with life paths. I was actually fine with this as they mentioned that they would affect your story. The 3 of these are Corpo, Nomad, and Street Kid. I chose Nomad as it was my first time playing the game, and I'd witnessed the first time going to Night City in a fresh way. Well, guess what? The life path doesn't even matter. The only difference is the intro and a few dialogue options that will rarely affect your story. Once you've completed the intro, you're in the same place as all of the other life paths. It almost felt unnecessary to even be in the game, like another customizable option. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm talking about genital customization, literally the most unnecessary thing to be added to the game. I've completed Cyberpunk 2077 months ago and there's not one time where it actually served a purpose. My theory is that CDPR added this to the game to bring more attention to it, since when it was said there's memes all over the internet about it. This is another customizable option that's completely unnecessary. But there is one more con with the character customizer, that being that you basically never see V. The only time you see V is in the customizer screen, the inventory screen, the final cutscene, and the mirrors that you have to activate. I'd really prefer if they stuck with the cutscenes from the 48-minute gameplay video. Moving on from customization, we're now talking about characters and gangs. There are many interesting characters who weren't utilized well. T-Bug was barely in the game to begin with, and after she died she was never mentioned, unless you went to some merchant store. The same can be said about the gangs within the game, like the Voodoo Boys and the Valentinos. The Voodoo Boys had like 3 missions, and after they went to cyberspace, they were practically never mentioned. The Valentinos, however, had like little to no quests, which was really surprising as Jackie was a former member. Speaking of Jackie, they completely spoiled his death in the CGI trailer. The first time I watched the trailer, I thought it was one of the many outcomes within the game, but it turned out that it was a completely scripted event. So if you watch that trailer, you literally got it spoiled from CDPR. The next con is related to the story. And me personally, I enjoyed the story, but there was still a problem with it, that being the linear route. I can name 3 main missions that were non-linear off the top of my head, that being the Maelstrom's quest from the 48-minute gameplay video, the Voodoo Boys quest later on in the game, as well as the final quest. The rest of the main story went in an almost strict linear route, which is quite disappointing as it would be pretty cool to save characters that already died. Moving on from the story, the open world is pretty disappointing. In games like Grand Theft Auto 5, there are many things to do around the world. You could walk and play fetch with your dog, have conversations with random civilians, and even play tennis. In Cyberpunk, there's literally nothing to do around the city, which brings us to the next con, that being the police system. Cyberpunk has a bad police feature where cops spawn behind you when you aren't looking. They won't even chase you either. To this day, Grand Theft Auto still has the best police feature to date. It includes multiple levels known as stars. When the star increases, there will be more cops with stronger weapons, and if you get to the 5th star, you'll have a SWAT team on you. It's really disappointing how Cyberpunk 2077 didn't take a similar route. Moving on from the wanted level, we'll now get into the con you've all been waiting for, that being the bugs. I have never in my life played a game this buggy until Cyberpunk 2077. There are some crazy bugs like a car flying out of literal nowhere, as well as making a handicapped person walk again by punching them. There's a 41-minute gameplay video made by Crobcat that's basically a compilation of these bugs if you're interested. Anyway, the last con I'll cover is the crashing. I played the Xbox version, so the crashing was terrible. Literally every single day I played the game, it would crash at least one time. I'm not sure if crashing is still an issue, but if it's not, we may have to deal with something in the present day. Cyberpunk 2077 has gotten some good news recently, that being the largest and most recent update. The update was said to cover multiple things including mission crashes, bugs, and many more. While the update is a step forward, I still wish the game was properly released. This can be a message to other games to only release a game when you're sure it's finished, as well as waiting for the right time to provide a release date. Anyway, I want to know your opinions on the game. Did you like it? Do you think the updates will mean anything? Comment below with your opinions. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, why not subscribe? I have other videos uploaded as well as ideas for the future. This has been Verbo. I hope you enjoy the video, and peace.